What's something that was designed for the use of one sex but is now predominantly used by the other? There's a great monologue in The Social Network about this. A Stanford MBA named Roy Raymond wants to buy his wife some lingerie but he's too embarrassed to shop for it at a department store. He comes up with an idea for a high-end place that doesn't make you feel like a pervert. He gets a $40,000 bank loan, borrows another $40,000 from his in-laws, opens a store, and calls it Victoria's Secret. Makes $500,000 his first year. He starts a catalog, opens 3 more stores, and after 5 years he sells the company to Leslie Wexner and the Limited for $4 million. Happy ending, right? Except 2 years later, the company's worth $500 million and Roy Raymond jumps off the Golden Gate Bridge. Poor guy just wanted to buy his wife a pair of thigh highs. He was also captured by the Germans and kept prisoner. He was given a really cushy cell, all to himself, and received the best treatment a German prisoner could ask for. Why? Because his surname was Churchill, they thought he was related to Winston Churchill and that they would be able to use him to get over on the Prime Minister himself. If I remember rightly, he lived out the rest of the war as their prisoner and was rescued once the war was over. After a quick check he escaped the Germans a few times. When the Germans had to abandon the camp, Jack Churchill walked 150 kilometers until he met a U.S. armored unit. After this, he was redeployed to Burma to fight in the Pacific War in 1945. Supposedly by the time he reached India, Hiroshima and Nagasaki had been nuked and the war was over. Sources state that Jack Churchill was actually upset that the war was over, stating that they could have kept it going another 10 years. P.S. I love how this turned into a few guys talking about Jack Churchill. Leggings. In the early Renaissance, young, fashionable men just stopped wearing their skirt/robes. The old, religious men were absolutely scandalized. Sounds familiar, no? Edit. Of course there's more to it than this, but this is the very simplified gist. Smile. The scandal wasn't really the leggings. Men had been wearing various types of leggings, split hose earlier, and then increasingly joined hose by the 1400s, for hundreds of years, or forever, really, if you include the various Vikings, Anglo-Saxons, etc., who wore pants before all that. The scandal was that, in prior centuries, tunics reached near the knees, or were at least long enough to cover the pelvic area. By the late 1300s, though, men started wearing shorter, tighter tunics and jackets, which revealed the pelvis in front and back. Considering at the time that split hose only covered the legs and not the pelvis, this wasn't entirely surprising, since it basically meant that fashionable men started walking around with their underwear exposed. Then they started joining the hose together in back, and putting a codpiece over the front. Then someone had the genius idea to start making codpieces bigger and bigger. 2 reasons seem to be of greatest interest: to make it easier to find by the owner or partner and to make it easier to stimulate. Some want to orgasm quicker, some want stronger orgasms, and a few just want to be able to orgasm. Finding that tiny sensitive organ can be a serious matter because about half range from rice grain to small pea size, most of the remainder are no larger than a corn kernel, about 1/4 inch. Many women have never seen their clits because they are simply too small and buried under or in other tissue, another reason to enlarge your clit. A few want a mini penis that can be stroked similarly to an intact penis. The good news is you can grow a much larger clitoris and you can do it reasonably quickly. Well, I brought the answer to you. Apparently. In the 1920s, some groups had been describing pink as a masculine color, an equivalent of the red that was considered to be for men, but lighter for boys. But stores nonetheless found that people were increasingly choosing to buy pink for girls, and blue for boys, until this became an accepted norm in the 1940s. That's not really an answer as to why the change happened so much as confirmation that the change occurred. I don't know if this podcast, Every Little Thing, pink for girls, blue for boys, would fully answer your question, but it was a really good listen. Basically boils down to marketing. This article from Live Science says it has to do with French fashion influencing marketing in the 20th century. But yeah, there's no such thing as gendered colors. My wife bought my 7-month-old son a pink hat, and we think it looks good on him. We keep getting people asking us, "Why did you get him a pink hat?" It's because he looks cute, and he's a baby. And it blocks out the sun. Geez. I always think of the Sex and the City episode where Samantha tries to return it, smiley face. Yes, I'd like to return this vibrator. We don't sell vibrators. Yes you do, I bought it here 6 months ago. That's not a vibrator, it's a neck massager. No, it's a vibrator. Sharper Image doesn't sell vibrators, it's a neck massager. You expect me to believe that women buy these to help their sore necks? The first time I went to Japan I stayed with a friend at her parents' house in her brother's old room. I went to put some of my stuff away in the closet and there I saw, for the first time in real life, one of these. I was like oh shit oh shit oh shit oh shit this is embarrassing oh shit. And tried my best to put it out of my mind. Not till like a month later was I like oh wait. Isn't that thing's initial purpose to massage shoulders and stuff? Maybe it's not as bad as I thought. Who knows, though, right? Men began wearing wristwatches before women did as it was more convenient to wear a wristwatch in the trenches and for World War I pilots navigating cross-country flights. One of the things that kept pocket watches popular for longer was accuracy and timekeeping. For many years railroad watches were required by law to be pocket watches of 16 or 18 size. Historically women wore their watch on a brooch. Starting with 8 size in the 1860s, 6 size in the 1870s, 1890s, and 0 size in the early 1900s. When the brooch fell out of style women began wearing wristwatches. This also happened to coincide with watchmaking production technology being able to mass-produce very tiny movements. It had nothing to do with pockets. I am a certified master watchmaker by the Chicago School of Watchmaking and I have been restoring antique pocket watches and wristwatches for 14 years. I'm also a commercial and instrument-rated pilot with an interest in early 20th century aviation history. You think they've fallen out of style? I feel like there's a huge resurgence of interest in wristwatches stemming from trends like the G-Shock and Apple Watch in younger people. I casually mentioned that I liked the Hulk Rolex in a college class and it started a big conversation between like 15 guys about high-end watches out of nowhere. Young dudes still like watches, we just can't afford them. I have a good example that's unfortunately about 100 years old. Back during the World War tampons were commonly found in medkits for soldiers due to a need for bandages. Edit. After a quick fact check I have discovered that using tampons for bullet wounds has occurred back to the 18th century. Also I know this isn't quite predominantly just thought it was a kinda neat fact. P.S. If I'm factually incorrect please correct me as I don't want to spread misinformation. PPS tampons may provide extremely short-term relief from mild bleeding but in case of severe hemorrhaging it's recommended to use anything with a large surface area and to keep pressure on the wound. Ideally hemostatic dressings or gauze is available, however medical professionals have stated that even clothing may be effective. As well as this tourniquets are also encouraged if the wound is on a limb. This is due to the fact that tampons offer no hemostatic properties and can only absorb around 9 milliliters of blood. I was wondering when I would run into this answer. This was the first thing that came to my mind too. I myself am a little hazy on the details, but Herc tampons were first created to plug up bullet holes and stop the bleeding for injured men on the front line, but the nurses serving in the medical facilities in the war soon found out they could. Well, stick it up there and it would serve the same purpose. I don't actually know when this started, but I seem to recall women starting to use them during World War I. This might be total bullshit though, This must be in North America. In most parts of the world everyone at least learns on a manual transmission. I know that in the UK if you take the test in an automatic you have to retake it in a manual if you want to drive them. My mum and I got into an argument about this when I wanted to rent a car in the UK since I only had a US license and she assumed that meant I could only drive an automatic. Nope, Mum, I learned in a manual. Your manual. Same in the Netherlands. The default driving license, B, is stick. Automatic, B78, is the exception. When I was learning how to drive my driving school had 14 manuals and a grand total of 1 automatic, which the instructors lovingly called Eddie Automat, Eddie Automatic. While people do attach a stigma to driving an automatic, especially if you're a guy since men seem to be culturally obliged to always take the hardest way out, driving instructors don't. They appreciate that driving actually isn't very easy at all. I've got executive functioning issues which made driving stick difficult. I have a B78 license and am thus legally banned from driving stick. If I want to drive stick I'll have to take more driving lessons and redo the exam. Even now I'm not good at driving and don't like to do so. Driving legitimately is fun, especially driving a manual, but the problem is there's traffic on the road. If I drive for 2 hours I'm exhausted.